What is up, everyone? It is the time for the new set to come out in just I think it's about 10 days now, coming out on February 6th on MTG Arena, Murders at Karlov Manor. And we have almost all of the cards previewed or spoiled at this point. So I wanted to go through some of the cards which I think are very good, some cards I think are going to be good in older formats, and some cards that I think are interesting in that either they have some cool mechanics or they're like power creep versions of previous cards. So today we're going to look at the ones that I think are going to be very good in standard specifically, and maybe other formats. So yeah, let's take a look. All right, get right into it. We have the first card here. This one is only going to be good if there is a heavily green-based deck in standard, which I think is more possible than ever with this latest set because there are quite a few really good green creatures in the set, and I think having a triple green card in that deck would make a lot of sense. Of course, maybe there's going to be some ramp deck that wants this card as well. That could be maybe green splash some other color, but mainly in green. So I think you could see plays either way. But anyway, let's read the card. 3 green, green, green. So yeah, 3 green pips, if that wasn't clear. And you get to choose one of the following, and you either search your library for a creature or land, and if it's a land, it goes to the battlefield tapped. If it's a creature, it goes to your hand. Or the second ability, put a counter on a creature you control and it deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. So a bite spell with the +1/+1 counter. And then third one, exile target artifact or enchantment. So you got, some removal if you need it, some ramp, so, wait to find a creature, or a removal for artifacts or enchantments. So pretty much in any scenario, this is going to be good. Like, worst case scenario, either just ramp yourself or find a creature that you want from your deck. So Demonic Tutor, Rampant Growth, some bite spell with +1/+1 counter, or like a disenchant. So yes, I guess everything in that list is typically like 2 or 2.5 mana. Um, so it's not quite 3 mana worth, but the fact that it's instant speed, the fact that it has the flexibility, it means that this is definitely worth the cost of this. So this card is good. It's going to be good somewhere. Maybe it'll be good in older formats. I mean, we see Archmage's Charm, very popular in control decks. This could be popular in ramp decks or mono green or elves or something like that. All right, next one. Chalk outline, 3 and a green. Whenever one or more creature leaves your graveyard, create a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token, then investigate. Now, key thing, this doesn't say only once per turn, but it does say one or more creature cards leave. So in theory, you want to remove like one creature each time and do that multiple times, and then you get a bunch of tokens and a bunch of clues. Most of the mechanics in this current set will make you exile like a few cards, but not necessarily all of them. And there's ways, older cards that are currently still in standard, that can make you exile 1 or 2 cards from your graveyard. So it's not that unreasonable to at least once a turn make a 2/2 and a clue token, which is just really good value. Um, I see this as kind of a snowbally card, right? You get this down on turn 3 or 4, 3 if you have ramp, 4 if you don't have ramp, and then every turn after that, you're making a 2/2 and a clue, or maybe multiple 2/2s and clues, depending on how you've built your deck. So, um, yeah, it seems like a really good like snowball finisher kind of deck that you'd want. Maybe you want in a ramp deck. Um, who knows? But it's gonna get better and better as longer the game goes on. So basically, you just gotta try to stall out until turn 4 or 5 when you can get this engine rolling. All right, moving on. Cryptic Co. I really feel like they pushed green and blue in this set a lot more than previous sets. I felt like blue was that. Some people have disagreed with me. obviously I'm a little bit biased because I love blue, but I felt like blue was maybe like second worst color in the last couple sets. Maybe the last set they tried to improve it a little bit, but last few sets it's been pretty weak. Like maybe one or two blue cards were good. The rest of the blue cards were just draft chaff and weren't really playable in standard. But this set, I feel like blue seems good, and so this is one of the cards that I'm really into. Um, Cryptic Co, 2 mana blue artifact equipment. When it enters the battlefield, cloak the top card of your library, then attach Cryptic Cloak to it. Equipped creature gets +1 and can't be blocked. And then return Cryptic Coat to its owner's hand for 1 and a blue. And so, what is a cloaked card? Cloaked card is you take the top card of your library, you put it face down. It's a 2/2 with Ward 2. And since this is equipped to it, it becomes a 3/2 with Ward 2 that can't be blocked. That's worth 3 mana for me right there. It's hard for the opponent to remove, especially on turn 3. And it can't be blocked, so you can get in with damage. You can maybe put some like curiosity on this to start getting you some cards. And then, in a pinch, maybe you can hold up counter spells, and if the opponent somehow gets through your counter spells, you can still bounce this back to your hand and do it all again. Not to mention the fact that the card you get from the top of your library is essentially a free card because you can flip it up at any time for its mana cost. So you could even do a thing where like you want to cast the card that got cloaked, you bounce this back to your hand, and then you cast the card for its mana value. So you kind of get like a 2 cards back for what you paid. So really seems like good value. Even just playing it on 3, getting the 3/2 that can't be blocked with War 2, that's a great deal. And so I'm really happy to play this in basically any deck that has blue creatures. I think maybe even just a blue control deck. Like I would be happy to play this. So this card seems really, really good in blue. All right, next, Ezam, Agency Chief. A lot of people were down on this. They said, well, it's not Dream Trawler, the other really big creature that we had in previous set. But we haven't had a creature like Dream Trawler in standard in a while. I guess since the last rotation happened. So I think Ezram is better than people think. It's not a bomb card. It's probably a decent control finisher. You wouldn't want to play it on turn 5. You'd want to play it when you have 6 mana up for sure. It comes down. It's a 5/5 flying that can block stuff. And then you have that 1 mana up to instantly give it hexproof, lifelink, or vigilance. And I think you might even want to have your deck so that you have a few artifacts before this one comes into the battlefield so that no one can do some shenanigans where they try to kill it while the ETB is on the stack. That would be the smarter play. But even against mono red, if you get this down and you give it lifelink, like what are they gonna do, right? You're gonna start gaining massive amounts of life each turn, putting them on the clock. And hexproof means it's decent against black decks. Yeah, and you've got at least 2 activations of those. And of course, as I mentioned, if you have other artifacts lying around, then it gets even better. So I think it's good. I think it's better than people think. And the one downside of Dream Trawler was that it taps the Dream Trawler when you activate it. This one doesn't even tap. So yeah, I think it's got some advantages to Dream Trawler. It can even draw you 2 cards, which is another advantage. So it's not as good as Dream Trawler, right? But it is good, and I think it could be a good finisher. So I think this card is very good. All right, next one, Fugitive Codebreaker, 1 and a red for a 2/1 prowess haste creature, which is decent, right? And it's good in mono red and good in Spells Matters deck with the prowess and the haste. But you can also play this face down for 3 mana as a 2/2 with Ward 2. And you can flip it up for its disguise cost, which is 5 and a red, but it gets 1 cheaper for each instant and sorcery in your graveyard. So, if you have 4 or 5 instants and sorceries in your graveyard, this is going to be pretty cheap to flip up. In total, it would be 3 plus 1 if you have enough instants and sorceries in your graveyard. So 4 mana total. And when it's turned face up, you discard your hand and then you draw 3 cards. So basically, you play some red burn aggro deck, which is a bunch of 1-drops, bunch of 2-drops. And then, you're running low on resources, but all your instants and sorceries are in your graveyard because you burned out the opponent. Now you can play this down and flip it up for 4 mana and refill your hand because you draw 3 cards. So seems really good. Could even be good in older formats, especially where you can like Thoughtseize and Lightning Bolt and stuff like that and get a bunch of stuff in your graveyard super quick. So I think this card is very powerful and it's gonna see play somewhere, maybe in standard, maybe in older formats. Alright, next one up, Intrude on the Mind, 3 in blue. I love this card so much, and I'm really happy Wizards printed this. I felt like for a long time they've been really not giving blue the like card advantage that it's supposed to be blue's color pie. Like that's like the main thing of blue is that it's supposed to get card advantage better than any other color. And for a while now, black and green have both been doing very getting a lot of card draw, and blue has been very mediocre on that. It's always been like draw 2, 4 mana draw 2, 5 mana draw 2, with some slight upside, but that's about it. So I'm really happy to see this. This is 5 mana, instant speed. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library, and separate them into 2 piles. An opponent chooses one of those piles, and you put the other pile into your hand, and the rest in the graveyard. And then you create a 0/0 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying, and put +1/+1 counters on it for each card that was put into your graveyard. So most of the time, you'll separate it 2 cards in one pile, 3 cards in another pile. They give you the 2 cards, and you get a 3/3 Thopter creature for 5 mana. So you get 2 cards and a 3/3 Thopter, which is pretty dang good for 5 mana at an instant speed. I think there was a card called I'm thinking Sphinx's Revelation, but that's not the one. There was a card back in War of the Spark, which was like 6 mana, instant speed. You would draw a card, I think, and then for each card in your hand, you'd make a creature, like an army creature, based on the number of cards in your hand. So this is very similar to that, but it's 5 mana. So I think this could be very powerful. It's basically going to be like a super blue-white control finisher, most likely, where you counter everything and then you refill and make a win con at the end in turn 5. So really excited about this. You could even do some shenanigans where you put like the card you really, really want in a pile of 1, and then the other one in 4 cards in the other pile. So they either have to give you a 4/4 or give you the card give you the card you really want and give you a 4/4, or give you 4 cards and then you get a 1/1. So yeah, either way, there's a lot of thought to this and decision making, and it seems very, very cool and very much blue, and I love this. I love this card so much. All right, next up, Kellen, Inquisitive Prodigy. He has an adventure, which is blue and a green, sorcery, investigate, and you may play an additional land this turn. So this is kind of like a growth spiral, where you would draw a card and then play an additional land. It's obviously a little bit weaker than growth spiral, but it's along the same veins, where you get the clue token and get to play land. And then Kellen's side of this is not too shabby either. 4 mana, it's 2 green blue for a 3/4 with flying and vigilance, and whenever it attacks, you destroy up to 1 target artifact. If you controlled that permanent, draw a card. So if you have some food tokens lying around, you can attack in with this and gain some cards. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with both sides of this card. Especially the ramping, I think, is going to be very nice. Like, Growth Spiral was a really sick card. Personally, I didn't play it much because I was usually playing Control, but it's powerful, and I've seen it played against me many times. And so I think that side of it could be good, and the creature is also very good. So it's essentially like you get a sick effect and a sick creature in one package. So I think Simic, Simic or Soul Tie or something could be a thing, and Kellen could be in there for sure. All right, next one, Kylox's Volt Strider. This is 1 blue and a red for a 4/4 artifact vehicle with crew 2. However, there's an extra ability for collect evidence 6, which means you exile 6 CMC worth of stuff from your graveyard. And if you do that, it becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. So you can get around the crew cost by exiling cards from your graveyard. So I think essentially you'd want to play this in like a very heavy spell deck, maybe like an Arc-like Phoenix type deck, where you're cycling cards, you're burning out the opponent, you're removing creatures, and you get a bunch of evidence in your graveyard that you can turn this guy on. And then, you know, on top of that, whenever this creature attacks, you may cast an instant or sorcery from among the cards exiled with it. If that spell would be put into the graveyard, put it on the bottom of its owner's library instead. So by collecting the evidence and activating this, you get to cast a spell for free. And so you could even do something like Magnum Opus, you know, like where you cycle it and you get a treasure and you put this like 8 CMC card in your graveyard. You use that to activate the Volt Strider. You attack in, and now you cast a Magnum Opus for free. Unless I'm misunderstanding it, you may cast an instant or sorcery. Okay, I'm misunderstanding it. So you do have to pay the mana. So it's not free. Makes it a little bit worse. But still, every time it attacks, you basically get a free card that you have to pay for. So a little bit worse than I thought, but still very good. It's still basically generating you cards, and you can still play it in some sort of deck where you're just casting spells and you don't need the creatures to crew this, essentially. So I think this card is very good. Could even see play in older formats, abusing that collect evidence in some way. So I think this card is super good. And vehicles typically are hard to deal with, and this is no exception for that. All right, next one, Lazav, Wearer of Faces. I'm also super excited about this. This is one Dimir card that they actually made good. They've been really not making Dimir very good in the last few sets. There has been Dimir decks that have been okay, but the actual like blue-black cards that were in the sets have not been that amazing or anything amazing. I think Nonsense maybe like Drown in the Lock back in the Eldraine, the original Eldraine set. That's when Dimir was like actually really good. Lots of good Dimir cards. And all the, you know, rogues and things like that. So this one is really cool. I really like it. Blue and a black for a 2/3. And whenever it attacks, exile a card from a graveyard, then investigate. So attacking generates you value. And whenever you sacrifice a clue, you may have Lazav become a copy of a creature card exiled with it. So turn 1, if you can mill or discard a big creature somehow. Turn 2, you play Lazav. And then turn 3, attack in. Now you exile that creature, and you can sacrifice your clue. You can turn it into that big creature and get some really cool effect. So that's kind of the pipe dream. It may not happen like that, but the fact that you can do something like that is really cool and very Dimir, and it just feels really, really nice. So I'm excited to try to do something like that. You know, I don't even know what you would want to turn it into, but something with a good attack effect, or something that does something when you damage the opponent or something like that, most likely. Anyway, it's going to be cool, and I'm excited for it. So Lazav is sweet. Up next, No More Lies, blue and a white. Counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. If it's countered this way, exile it instead of putting it in its owner's graveyard. So we got mana leak essentially, but it's a blue and a white. It's not just a 1 and a blue. And it also has this exile effect attached to it, which is good in this set in particular because people want stuff in their graveyard to use as evidence. So exiling it means they don't get to use it for their effects. Yeah, this is good. Like, this is a really good counterspell. We actually don't even have mana leak on MTG Arena, so this is essentially going to be the only mana leak we have. I could see this getting played even in like Timeless. Maybe in blue-white decks you have this card, you have Counterspell, you have all the other broken stuff in blue-white. But definitely in Standard, this will be in the blue-white deck for sure. This is a great Counterspell. It's probably the best one we've seen in, I don't know, 2 years maybe. So like Dovin's Veto, it was good, but this might actually be better than Dovin's Veto. So yeah, this is pretty sick. All right. I may have to end it there because we're going very long. We might have to do a part 2 of this one. But yeah, so far blue has me really excited. And blue and black in this set, very excited for. Control is looking pretty good, but there's also a lot of anti-control stuff that in the set that has me a little bit worried. So we'll have to see. But yeah, we'll do another one of these, and we'll go through the other very good cards and maybe some of the ones that are good in older formats as well. Hope you are having fun out there on MTG Arena still. But if not, February 6th, we got the new set. And so, till then, see ya.